perspective of Pakistan and China, it would be prudent to think of arrangement as knowledge corridor. The corridor will be all knowledge highways and information highways.
तालत साहब अपने आप को अनम्यूट कर लें सर।
Right. In the end, ladies and gentlemen, COVID since has become an important reality, a bitter reality in our world. So this development is likely to have profound impact on shaping international order, global politics, and most importantly, the global economy. I think Pakistan-China relations in times to come will see more cooperative relation in future in the wake of COVID-19. At the end, I hope the book would be a happy read for those who wish to know Pakistan-China relations, how they evolved in course of 70 years, and what these relations are turning out to be in fast-changing regional and global environments. Ladies and gentlemen, for sparing your time to be present at this book launch. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Talat, for sharing in detail with us that how the book was conceived, how it was shaped, and what does it actually seek to deliver. Now we move towards first member of our distinguished panel, Ambassador Azad Chaudhary. Ambassador Azad Chaudhary is presently serving as Director General of Institute of Strategic Studies in Islamabad. Before that, he has served for 37 years with Foreign Service of Pakistan, serving as Foreign Secretary of Pakistan, Ambassador of Pakistan to the United States, Ambassador of Pakistan to the Netherlands. His book, Pakistan, Mirror to the Dutch Eyes, was published by Sangamil Publications. Presently, Ambassador Azad is serving as DG ISSI Islamabad since June 2018. Ambassador Azad, floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Greetings to everyone who has joined this book launch. Despite COVID and initial hiccup, I think we are all now engaged on greeting the author, Dr. Talat Shabbir. Thank you also Amir Jahangir and Irfan Shahzad, both Mishal and Eurasian Century Institute for making this book launch possible. Thank you for partnering with ISSI in this regard as well. Let me commend Dr. Talat Shabbir for authoring this book. I know that writing a book demands commitment and it demands passion. And what I have seen in Dr. Talat is that he possesses both these qualities in abundance, commitment and passion, which he has amply demonstrated as the head of the China-Pakistan Study Center. I was wondering whether it is a coincidence that his PhD thesis, his work in the China-Pakistan Study Center, and now this book all relate to promoting Pakistan's relations with China. I personally don't think that it was a coincidence. I think it was a conscious decision taken by Dr. Talat to demonstrate his commitment to promoting and contributing to strengthening Pakistan-China relations because he, like many of us here, believes in this relationship and that it is critical for the prosperity of the people of Pakistan. Talat has also traced history, as he just explained, the various segments of his book, and argues that one element stands out, which is trust. And what I have seen in my own dealings with China throughout my own career, I would certainly like to second that. I think both these countries have enjoyed a very rare state of mutual trust that any two neighbors enjoy. Let me dwell on this a little more. Now, Pakistan and China have historically followed a different cultural path. Yet the two have been able to build this trust. So one wonders how did that happen? I remember one foreign ambassador who recently spoke to us. He said that the people of Pakistan have a comfort zone with the English-speaking countries and communities. It is true that Pakistan has had good relations with and deep ties with United States, UK, and other English-speaking countries. However, it is also equally true that today the Chinese universities are attracting far more students from Pakistan than American universities are. I think the ratio is something like 28,000 to 8,000. The barrier of language and culture is being bridged pretty rapidly. And I think this is, the people of Pakistan and people of China are discovering that the relationship that they have goes way beyond just the language, but into the realm of mutual trust and confidence. While browsing through this book, I came across one question that Dr. Talat poses, and towards the end of his introductory remarks, he talked about it. What can the world learn from China? That's his question. Then he goes ahead and answers this question that in his opinion, it is the wisdom, the Chinese wisdom. The wisdom to share the knowledge that Chinese society has accumulated through centuries of experience. Today, Confucius stands out as an icon for Chinese wisdom. But how do we learn from the Chinese experience on that? And Talat thinks that just like we have created the China-Pakistan economic corridor, perhaps we could also create a China-Pakistan knowledge corridor. I think this is a great idea. I believe that this could be pursued. Perhaps the China-Pakistan Study Center could find some ways to pursue this, and perhaps the two organizations which are co-sponsoring this particular program could also join in. And since there are other illustrious speakers who would be covering several other aspects of the book, I would like to close my remarks by once again extending my heartfelt felicitations to Dr. Talat Shabbir for authoring this book, which is timely and will go a long way in contributing to strengthening Pakistan's relations with China. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ambassador Azad. Now we move towards our next learned panelist, Lieutenant General Retired Naeem Khalid Lodi Saab, who has served as Defense Secretary as well as Federal Defense Minister of Pakistan, and he was commissioned in Pakistan Army in October 1974. After that, he had served at several important positions, including Corps Commander of Bahawalpur and several other important positions at GHQ, NDU, military establishments. Lieutenant General Naeem Khalid Lodi, take.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I hope I am audible. I'm still getting a lot of echo of the. Thank you very much, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the author, Dr. Talat Shabbir, Mishal, Pakistan, and everybody. It is a matter of honor to be a part of this virtual launching of the book, Creating Shared Futures. And whenever there's a launch of any book, it is always a dilemma for for us that whether we should be speaking more about the author or about the book. Because if you try to speak for both of them, it takes a lot of time. And if you distribute the time, then you don't cover anything. So I'm going to do the last thing. I will speak few words about the author and then about the book. I know Colonel Talat Shabbir. I know Dr. Talat Shabbir. I know poet Talat Shabbir, and I also know fiction writer Talat Shabbir. As a uniformed man, he did everything like a thoroughbred soldier. Whatever task was given to him, we kept on looking, seeing him, observing him. And then because I was affiliated with NDU, so I saw him pursuing his scholarly things. And there also he did it with a lot of deliberation and all that. And then I enjoy his poetry. I've not read his fiction, but I think he has promised me that he will give me that book also. He's a soft-spoken, smiling personality, but firm in his ideas and analysis. And I would say that Ambassador Azad is lucky to have him with him, because whatever task is given to him, I'm sure you will agree with me that he will perform it within time and to the best of his abilities. This is, as he said, this is his third book and first in geopolitics or international relations. Now, in this era of Facebook and Twitter, people, they don't like to study books. They don't like to read books. But to have a book of this size, 150 to 160 pages, is a welcome thing. And I think this is one good thing in this era, that if you do not get a voluminous book and it is manageable, so that way it is readable. So I think this book can be read in 3-4 sittings. And that is one quality that I would say that this book contains. It has been neatly divided into 6 chapters, and as he has explained himself, the first 3 is a historical review of Pak-China relation through various phases, Cold War, pre-Cold War, Cold War and post-Cold War. And it is a story of ever-strengthening and expanding relationships in spite of the changing faces of whatever was going on all along the globe. The 4th chapter is, interestingly, it discusses the triangular and multi-layered diplomacy between China, India, and Pakistan. And it has also gone through various phases, and it is very interesting for the students of international relations to go through this chapter. Chapter 5 raises the level, expands the horizon, and looks at the global setting, bringing in United States, Russia, and other players, and its impact on Pak-China bonds. And it is seen that with each, whatever was happening in the world, whatever was happening to the world, the bondage between China and Pakistan kept strengthening, kept deepening, kept expanding. I think that is a feature of our relationship, and it is very unique in that sense. In the last chapter, it takes a peek into the future based on evolving situation of today, endeavors to map out various routes available for further Pak-China collaboration. And I think, as Ambassador Azad mentioned, his suggestion that we should try to learn from wisdom of the Chinese, that I think is good and important. And I felt one thing, that whereas we know so many aspects of the Western world about the Chinese, one thing which is especially missing, and that is their political system. I mean, I do not know why we are shy of learning more about it, as if we will be labeled that we are non. We need to learn that how have they evolved their system, how democratic it is or it is not, and then see that because a country like ours, which is so overly populated and with such rush in certain areas, we need to learn from that. I also have a few suggestions, Dr. Talat, for you for the next edition, which inshallah will come out, because I am sure this will be quite popular and you will be. So after this book matures, and why I'm saying matures, you'll get a lot of inputs, and it should be translated into Chinese, I think. And they should also know, our brothers should also know what we think about them and how do we respect them and how do we honor them. And if funds allows you, please improve the paper and the print next time. Some historical photographs, pictorials, maps, etc. will make it more attractive. And you can very easily do that. Leaders meeting each other at various occasions and some, meetings taking place and all those things. The cover picture may be in shining bold colors, especially the road which you have shown, which is a very apt thing to show. A road to the future must have bright red, as the Chinese flag is, and also semi-dark green as it is our flag. So all said and done, wish you good luck, and I hope that you will keep on making such endeavors, and we'll be getting many more books from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, General Sir. Next speaker to talk about the book, and if he so likes, about the author, would be Ambassador Khalid Mahmood Saab. Ambassador Khalid Mahmood Saab is presently serving as Chairman, Board of Governors of Institute of Strategic Studies, Islamabad. He's also former Pakistani envoy to China, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and Mongolia. He has also been Pakistan's permanent representative to OIC and ECO, and presently he is Chairman BOG of ISSI, Islamabad. Ambassador Khalid Mahmood Saab.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Mr. Amir Jahangir, Irfan Shahzad, other co-panelists and participants in this event. It is sheer pleasure to be attending this event at which a book is being launched by Dr. Talat Shabbir, Director, China-Pakistan Study Center at the Institute of Strategic Studies, Islamabad. His book, entitled Creating Shared Futures, Pakistan-China, A Journey of Trust and Friendship, is an epitome of deep scholarship and rigorous research standards. He has given an objective account of the evolution of Pakistan-China relationship. And I must tell you that although I have been associated with this relationship in various capacities, but I have learned many new things while I was perusing through this book. Now, as it is, this book is timed with the 70th anniversary of the establishment of Pakistan-China diplomatic relations, as well as the 100th anniversary of the establishment of the Communist Party of China. So anniversaries are an occasion to reflect on where and how one has come along and to chart out future goals and course of action. Same is true of Pakistan-China relationship. It has indeed been a glorious journey, as I gather from this book and from my own experience. Of course, there have been changes not only within Pakistan and China, but also at the regional and international level. But one thing which has remained constant is the abiding deep friendship between the two countries. Now, this friendship is indeed unique because, as has been pointed out by others and by the author of the book, that there are so many differences between Pakistan and China. We don't share culture, history, religion, race, economic systems. We have different ideological moorings. But still, ever since the establishment of these relationships 70 years ago, we have witnessed an upward curve. And their bilateral relationship has matured and blossomed with passing of every day. Now, we have so much identity of views. I was wondering, I can't find any issue, any major issue on which we don't see eye to eye. Now, how is it possible that with so much differences and still we have such strong ties? It is because it is based on mutual trust, a trust which has been tested over time and has never been found wanting. And see, I was just reminded, when I was reading the book, it looked as if I am watching a film, because I've seen this evolution personally. For example, in 1971, at the United Nations, China's rights as a member of the United Nations was restored. Before that, it was Taiwan which used to represent China at the United Nations, and do that too as a permanent member of the Security Council. But I saw how Pakistan led the effort of the Asia-African countries to get this right of China restored at the United Nations. And I also recall that how Pakistan expressed its solidarity with China when China was undergoing through cultural revolution. Because I accompanied Foreign Secretary at that time, Dr. Humayun Khan, to express solidarity with China. So there are so many other occasions. What we have seen is that initially this relationship was mainly confined to the political, strategic, and defense fields. And what was lacking was economic content and also people-to-people contact. And happily now those lacunae are being plugged by this mega project, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. I don't have to dilate upon this subject because it is a buzzword now in every household of Pakistan, that how this project CPEC is going to transform Pakistan's economy and how Pakistan is going to leverage its this strategic geographical location. One thing which I did not find in this book was another characteristic of China, that of course China believes in 5 principles of coexistence, so do we, but that China is, though being a big power now, it has always been a stance of anti-hegemony. Even in my personal context, so whenever I took any issue for consideration with Chinese authorities. Their approach was that they would give advice as a genuine, close friend, but never impose their views. They would always say the decision is yours, but this is what our assessment is. So there's much to learn from Chinese experience, and especially now that they have taken about 800 million people out of absolute poverty. This experience, we have to learn for our benefit, this poverty eradication program of China. And I'm so happy that this book also concludes with a very optimistic note, and rightly so, because to have the closest friendly relation with China is the cornerstone of Pakistan's foreign policy. Only recently, while launching these celebrations of the 70th anniversary of Pakistan-China diplomatic relations, Foreign Minister Wang Yi said, "We should take this opportunity to initiate higher quality, more extensive and deeper cooperation, and step up our efforts of building an ever closer China-Pakistan community with a shared future in the new era." I think the gist of the relationship has been very rightly summed up by another former foreign minister, Mr. Lee Yoxing. He said, "The only country with which we describe our relationship as all-weather friendship is Pakistan." The only country with which we describe our relationship as all-weather friendship is Pakistan. And only recently, the Foreign Minister of China said, China-Pakistan friendship has grown into a towering tree with deep roots in the hearts of the two peoples. So these are not empty slogans. As I said, this friendship, this bond has been tested over time, and we have stood by each other in our difficult times. And the latest expression of this friendship we found in that Pakistan became the first country to receive 500 doses of Chinese COVID-19 vaccines and related medical equipment, and many more supplies to come. So I would like to conclude by saying that this is a very precious relationship, and we have to guard it because there are so many detractors. We have to further build upon this relationship and also pass on this relationship to the coming generations. Thank you.
Thank We now move towards Ambassador Masood Khalid Saab. Ambassador Masood Khalid Saab is the longest serving Pakistani ambassador to China. And I was just reading his introduction that he very rightly takes the credit of CPAC being conceived, launched, and consolidated during his tenure as ambassador of Pakistan to China. Ambassador Masood Khalid Saab.
Ji, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon to everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers and the Institute of Strategic Studies for giving me this opportunity to be part of this panel where eminent personalities are present, including my colleagues and senior Ambassador Khalid Mahmood, with whom I had the honor to serve twice in the ministry. Ambassador Khalid Mahmood Saab has, based on his own personal account, personal experience of China, has enlightened us of the depth and the the scale of this relationship, which has been nurtured over the last 70 years. What I plan to do is that I will comment to the book because I have read it from cover to cover. But before that, I would like to say a few words about the author. I came back from China about 2 years ago, and it was at an event at the Institute of Strategic Studies that I met Dr. Talat Shabbir for the first time. So I was naturally interested in knowing as to what the center was doing. And subsequently, we had several meetings where I had an opportunity to know more about what China-Pakistan Study Center was doing in terms of its programs and projects. So I was very happy to know that the center was engaged in a number of activities, like, for example, publishing research papers and bringing out their flagship magazine, The Pivot, and arranging international conferences and local conferences and workshops devoted to Pakistan-China relations. And I was also glad to know when I learned that the center has established institutional linkages with Chinese think tanks as well as local research organizations to have an integrated, approach of analyzing what China-Pakistan relations are and how China is, in fact, shaping up and impacting the global politics. I did participate. I had an opportunity to participate in several activities and programs organized by Dr. Talat Shabbir. And even now, as has been mentioned, the center is engaged, I think, in preparing a comprehensive program to celebrate the 70th anniversary of our diplomatic relations next month. I admire Dr. Talat for his passion for research. And in fact, he has infused a new energy in the work of the center, ably guided by Honorable Chairman of the Institute and Honorable Director General Ambassador Azad Chaudhary. So the center is quite proactive on multiple fronts, and it is good. This is how our relations, Pakistan-China relations, are very dynamic. So that is how the center should be. Well, we all know that in his previous incarnation, Dr. Shabbir was a soldier, but now he is double S. He's soldier as well as a scholar. And we all enjoy his columns also, which appear in the national newspapers quite frequently. And it is good to see him contributing on issues of importance to Pakistan and China. As far as his book is concerned, of course, it's a tribute to his scholarship and his commitment to promote, to make his own contribution to Pakistan-China friendship, which I think and I'm convinced is the most important relationship for Pakistan. Now, I'll come to the book. When I opened the first chapter of the book, I was struck by the word romance. I think nothing best could describe this relationship. It is an apt description of a relationship which is not easily understood by the world, especially in the West. The Western scholars tend to overemphasize the geopolitical imperatives binding our two nations. but they do not appreciate that this relationship has become resilient and steadfast because it has been tested time and again. And both countries have stood by each other and supported each other despite heavy odds and built this trust. So this trust is extremely important. No doubt, all countries have their own interest. But in the case of Pakistan and China, mutual trust and mutual respect complement mutual interest, which make this relationship durable and enduring. And indeed, it is a unique model in interstate relationships. Dr. Talat is right when he says in his book that in the world of diplomatic realism, this description looks, out of place. But in the context of Pakistan-China relations, it is true. So now, nurtured over 70 years and seen trials and tribulations, vicissitudes, this relationship has grown from strength to strength and is rooted in the hearts and minds of the two people. So this is the romance part. Then Dr. Shabbir has divided the evolution of the relationship in two phases, broadly speaking, but he has segregated these two periods into three distinct phases. The first phase he describes as of reluctance and aversion. Well, he has also given the reasons and an explanation as to why he thinks that the initial years were those of reluctance and aversion. But I would like to add that this first phase was also of getting to know each other and, in a way, rediscovering each other, being new countries. Of course, in the olden times, in ancient times, we had maintained contacts on this Gandhara Buddhist trail, but these contacts were snapped. And when our two countries emerged on the world map in 1947 and 49, we were new to each other. China was in the throes of a communist revolution. We were struggling with our own partition issues. And then but Pakistan was the first, Muslim country which recognized China. And we made these gestures. Even in the initial period of, early 50s, both countries made gestures. And I have some examples which I can quote. But what I'm trying to say is that there were no doubt policy divergences and some reservations in the beginning. But both countries refrained from taking actions which could antagonize the other. Because we were in different, camps. China was a communist country and we had joined the Western Alliance. So it was logical to have some policy divergences. But even at that time, Chinese leaders made gestures displaying their, proverbial wisdom, which were not lost on our leadership. We also reciprocated, no doubt. And at no stage, both countries showed any hostility towards each other, contrary to Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai era and a bonhomie between India and China at that time, which of course nosedived in 1962, Sino-Indian border conflict. And then the drift which started at that time has continued in one form or the other, even, till today. In the next phase, Dr. Shabbir has highlighted four major events. Number one, China's reform process. Number two, Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. Number 3, Tiananmen Square incident. And number 4, the dismemberment of USSR. The author rightly states that this period witnessed a new phase in our bilateral relations, and these events affected Pakistan-China relations in one form or the other. The third phase saw consolidation of our ties, intensifying collaboration in multiple fields, including defense, exchange of high-level visits, and above all, the launch of CPAC. In subsequent chapters, Dr. Talat has explained in detail various events and analyzed the evolving geopolitical dynamics in our region, with special reference to Kashmir issue, Indo-Pakistan relations, Indo-US relations, Sino-Indian relations, and in his view, in future, Pakistan-China relations can be affected by in the context of a spillover of extremism into China, security of Chinese personnel who are working in Pakistan, lack of people-to-people contacts, and the arms build-up by India using the China bogey, which is destabilizing the region. I would add another factor, and that is the question over our absorptive capacity, the absorptive capacity of our system to reap true dividends of CPAC, which can, in my view, impede its progress. There is also a portion on India's nuclear program and US-India nuclear deal, which is quite exhaustive. And he has rightly stated that the US-India nuclear deal took India-US relations from strategic to strategic plus, with serious implications for the security of Pakistan as well as China. And latest, of course, we all know that the latest edition of this strategic partner is a number of agreements which have been signed, giving India an edge over Pakistan and China in collecting spatial information and intelligence. And these agreements, in my view, have tilted further the equation in India's favor, which is against both China and Pakistan. And I would like to say, without any reservation, that our history is a witness that when it comes to choose between India and Pakistan, India is no doubt US favor. The justness of our cause. So both Chinese and Pakistani scholars need to be cognizant of this nexus, which will play out in our region to our detriment. Now, Ambassador Azad has already alluded to the knowledge corridor. This is an important. From my personal experience, I can tell you that work has already started under CPAC to develop a knowledge corridor in terms of academic exchanges and a consortium of Chinese and Pakistani universities and exchange of scientists, etc. But yes, I agree with Dr. Shabbir that there is a need to formalize and streamline this relationship and this process to develop a knowledge corridor. In conclusion, I would like to say that all along, the book is well researched, well documented, and shows the hard work of the author. And he concludes on a positive and optimistic note about Pakistan-China relations and their importance. It is a useful addition to the literature on Pakistan-China relations and an interesting read for both scholars and common readers. So I congratulate Dr. Talat, and I wish him all the best in his future endeavors. And I want to hope that this book will provoke our Pakistani readers to think as to what can we really learn from China. Thank you very much.
now we have a friend from China to talk about the book and the
book's author,
our
our very old friend, Professor Song Chi Hui. Professor Song, you are hearing me?
Yes, I'm here. Yes.
Yeah, Professor Song is here. Professor Song is director of Pakistan Study Center at Sichuan University in Chengdu.
Yes. Yeah, Study Center at Sichuan University in.
आप बोल दें आप बोले आपकी आवाज जा रही
Professor Song is also vice dean of School of International Studies at the Sichuan University. So I request Professor Song to make his remarks, please.
Hello. I'm sorry. I'm not showing up. Why? Can you hear me, or can you see me? Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm very honored to be here to speak on this occasion of the book launch, for which I was supposed to be part of that, but I'm very sorry that when Mr. Dr. Talat Shabbir invited me to write one chapter on that, but I'm sorry, I did not complete it. But anyway, I'm very happy to be here today to be part of this, and so I would first like to congratulate the launch of the book on this occasion on the before the eve of this 70th anniversary of the diplomatic relations between China and Pakistan. So I'm very happy and very excited about this event. Although I have not seen the copy or have read, because for some reason I have not received the copy of that. But anyway, I can imagine that this must be, as I have heard from the previous speakers, that this is a very fruitful and thoughtful book. I'm very confident on that. I'm very happy to I'm now looking forward to reading it in future. When I get the copy, and if I can get hard copy, that'd be great. So although I was not able to write the chapter which was assigned to me by Dr. Talat Shabbir. So anyway, I would like to say a few words about the relationship of the 70s during the past 70 years. First thing I would say, we are now working. I think we have been working very closely between our two countries on the. I think we're highlighting on the CPEC construction. I think this is something very important, very significant, both for China and for Pakistan. And I am very honored to have been working on this for some time with our counterparts in Pakistan, like the Institute of Studies in Islamabad, and like the Policy Study Islamabad, Mr. Irfan, we have been working together for some time. And so, very happy to say that we have entered the second phase of CPEC construction, the CPEC. And I think we will like we have been doing in the past years, that we will continue to work on this, and we need to concentrate on that, the CPEC in the second phase, that we are hoping to further construct the SCZs, and in order to relocate some industries, because in Pakistan this is the advantage of quite a lot of advantages on the CPEC construction in the second phase, like the industrial relocation and the industrial zones and some other. So I will say this is something which will be good for us to, I think for one thing that we can do is to promote the investment from China to the in the industry in the areas which are needed in Pakistan. So this is the first thing I think we can do. In fact, recently we've been doing this. This year we have been working with the like that Pakistan Pakistan Sichuan Chamber of Commerce. We've been working together very closely. We've been having meetings. So we will do that in order to promote the industrial development in Pakistan. In that way, it's to promote, improve the job opportunities for the people in Pakistan. And we are need to build Pakistan as the manufacturing center in South Asia, to meet the development in the West. So this is something we can work harder on that. I'll be happy to work with our friends in Pakistan. Another, which I think is something we can collaborate between China and Pakistan, in this way or any other way, just to reduce the poverty, because in some areas we notice that when we need to do harder on that to promote the economic development. And thirdly, finally, I think here's my request, and I wonder if it's possible for Mr. Dr. Talat Shabbir that is it possible for us from the Pakistan Study Center, Sichuan University, to translate the version of this book in Chinese? If you authorize me, I think we'll be happy to do that, to publish the Chinese version of this book in China, so that people will know more about this. So thank you again for inviting me to speak here, and once again to congratulate the launch of this publication list. And I'm looking forward to work more closely with you, with our friends in Pakistan, two great countries to more successful in the future. So I'll thank you again, and then I have to stop here today. Thank you. Thank you. How can you hear me? Hello, I'm finished speaking.
Thank you, Professor Chaudhary, and Dr. Talat Shabbir will respond to you in a short about your suggestion to translate the book in Chinese on the platform of yours here in China. The moment we are moving as our next speaker. Ms. Chaudhary is head of Azad, Islamabad, and she's also a futures research communication strategy. Is distinguished attitude of strategy.
Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. I'm so honored to be among such worthy and such experienced panelists who really have good insight as to how and what China is about. But at the same time, I'm very humbled to be speaking about Dr. Talat's work, whom I've actually known for quite some time, since the time that this book wasn't even conceived. So it's it's quite a unique moment in the sense that when we have been living in this for the past 1 year, a post-pandemic, it's not even post, we're still living in it, it's a pandemic world, we see this book comes out and trust being as a core part of the core element of the relationship between China and Pakistan. Having said that, Dr. Talat's work is very timely. It really, as I browse through the book, it really focuses on elements that the sort of elements, the relationship part, the edges and the contours of what the relationship looked like, what sort of decisions took place. So it gives a very, for a foresight practitioner like myself, it really helps us sort of imagine what kind of future scenarios may probably emerge from this relationship. One of the important aspects as we're going through these times, and I think the work is foundational in terms of giving us some semblance as we develop these future scenarios between the relationship between Pakistan and China, is the digital transformation part that is sort of we're undergoing. This meeting would have, had it not been for internet, had it not been for these telecommunications technologies, we would have had this meeting face to face, and perhaps this book launch would have had the sort of gathering that we are so used to having at ISI in itself. So very grateful for the Euro-Asian Century and Michelle Pakistan for actually putting this together. Dr. Talat has been one of those few individuals that I've come across in Islamabad who is, I guess, in a way, who has been more passionate about CPEC than the Chinese themselves. So it is very heartening to see how he communicates the essence of the dividends that CPEC is going to achieve in terms of his writing, in terms of his research work, in terms of the work that he delegates to other also networks and communities that are focusing on the same areas. But the fact that there is one driving force that has not let this die down in the country. We've had times in the past couple of months where there was almost negligible conversation around CPEC, and yet his effort, not just in the form of the book that he's produced, but in the sense of his continuous effort to move around throughout the country and to try and engage as many people as he can. And especially what is so important is that he's engaging the young people. So in the beginning, when Ambassador Azad did point out as language being one of the factors of cultural understanding between two different nations, his work is actually promoting that very aspect where language is important. If you want the next 2-3 generations in order to understand and comprehend a very vital partnership that has taken 70 odd years for it to be fully canvassed in a manner that it has canvassed, language and culture, tradition, norms, these play an important part. And what I'm hoping that think tanks like yourself, the work that Michelle does, the work of Dr. Talat, we can somehow bring in a lot of media content. China has a vast media landscape, and that landscape needs to be somewhat brought into our cinemas, our homes also. So although there is, we would like to have an exposure into what would a Netflix coming from China would look like also. So these are the important aspects where you want to bring in some level of comprehension. And perhaps when you're talking about creating shared futures as the book title, we're not looking at a singular future. So this is not just a particular foresight, where we are actually, when we're talking about 220 million Pakistanis, we're talking about the destinies and the faith and the future of these 220 million Pakistanis. And these are 220 million Pakistanis that are actually being embedded in every decisions that China and Pakistan sort of take together. And this is not just for Pakistanis alone. I mean, equal is over 1 billion population, the Chinese population. How much exposure do they have to Pakistani content? That is also to shape their perception and their understanding of what the Pakistani people are about. And this is something that I think Perhaps when you're looking into your next work, and as you build more understanding as to where we want to, how do we want to build our societies in general, we want to be also looking at the aspect of what kind of content would we want the Pakistani societies to be exposed to, and Chinese media, Chinese movies, Chinese films and dramas, music could be, and therefore the languages program that have started across Pakistan could be one of the starting points. But at the same time, I think we can see a lot of growth within the entertainment sector. Not just news is one form of information, but in terms of really having the growth potential, utilizing the digital transformation, we can really focus on the emerging technologies and how that will influence Pakistan in the future. And so that would, I think, when we talk about the geo-economic landscape, that would potentially transform. And the title of Dr. Shabbir's work is very apt. It only sort of shows that Dr. Talat Shabbir has many more books around the same subject in the pipeline. Otherwise, this cannot be just a particular future. We will look forward to many more futures from Dr. Shabbir's lens. And hopefully this is something that we can work together on. And you've put in fantastic work. I mean, a lot of these people the panelists that you've gathered, Dr. Naeem Lodi, Dr. Khalid, Dr. Ambassador Masood, all these people have echoed in, not just commenting on your personality, but this sort of intellect that you carry, and not just through the prism of your research work, but your creativity work, the capacity for you to imagine. So hopefully we'll look forward to more of your work and see how you can imagine multiple futures for Pakistan-China relations. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Prush. With this, we come to the conclusion of list of panelists. And before we request Ambassador Azad once again to make his concluding remarks, Dr. Talat would be responding to some of the suggestions and recommendations made about the book. Dr. Talat, please.
Thank you very much, Irfan. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I'm really thankful for all these suggestions made by honorable panelists, discussants about the book. Of course, I ignore maybe some of the personal comments made over me. I would try to include those suggestions in the second edition of the book, hopefully, and some of the suggestions I have noted for future writings also. One thing about translation in Chinese, while we were, through the session, I received a message from China, from Chinese friend, that the book is already accepted by one of the institution for Chinese translation. So that's good news, I think, because of some people wanting this way, so it happened. So we also have for Dr. Song, we are already collaborating with his center. I hope he is off the line now. We are in communication with this center, and we have a number of projects that both centers are doing together, and we have long list of projects. Hopefully, we will be engaging with Professor Song for future and for numerous research projects that we have both thought to do under the umbrella of our joint effort. With this, I would like to thank all of you to be present here, and particularly the panelists who very graciously came and commented the book. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Talat. We are moving towards the close of the session, and the session will be closed with concluding remarks by, once again, by Honorable Ambassador Azad Chaudhary Saab. Before I hand over the mic to him, I personally thank Mission Pakistan for joining hands with us, and all the honorable panelists, not only for your very encouraging remarks, but also for sticking to the time limit allotted to you. Thanks a lot once again. And now we have Ambassador Azad Chaudhary to conclude the session.
Thank you, Irfan Shehzad Saab. You moderated, but your internet did not cooperate with you that much. We couldn't hear some of your announcements, but thank you still, Eurasian Shranchari Institute and Rinstra Technology, Mission Pakistan, both joining hands to do this book launch. It's an honor. And I was sort of amused to see that there were 3 Khalids in the in the speakers. Naim Khalid, Masood Khalid, and Khalid Mahmood. So no doubt Khalid is the most popular name in Pakistan. There is no doubt about it. It's a beautiful name too. So, but thank you so much. You all spoke very well. And Dr. Piyush Chaudhary, you also made some very interesting points. Amir Jahangir Saab, I think, and Professor Song too, who's great offer to translate the book, is on the table now. I think all of you made, if I can say, 4 points or 5 points. One, almost everyone mentioned trust. Everyone also felt that the relationship remains sustainable despite geostrategic changes. I think everyone also realized that economic cooperation between these two would remain the mainstay of the relationship. And then there was one point which Ambassador Masood Khalid mentioned more than others, is the sensitivity to each other's core areas of interest. And probably he meant also in regard to counterterrorism. And Dr. Piyush Chaudhary, interestingly, introduced the idea of cooperation in the media and films. I think that's a great idea, by the way. We have learned of Chinese through Netflix, mainly through Panda and Mulan and things of this sort, but maybe hardcore Chinese films could also, with translation. After all, people of Pakistan have watched Urturu, Resurrection, Urturu, 5 seasons, 500 episodes, partly dubbed, but mostly subtitled. So why not the Chinese movies could come in? I am personally very fond of also the Persian movies because I have found them, they're fabulously made. Persia is a rich culture, and I can imagine that Chinese movies will be equally more interesting, and perhaps this is an area which is less explored. I'm sure Dr. Talat has taken note of all these points. He had already mentioned that he has. I just want to also take the opportunity to inform you that on 20th May, we will be launching, the ISSI's Institute will be launching another book on Pakistan-China relations, and we are titling it Higher Than Karakoram. Higher Than Karakoram. Not Himalayas, we talked about it, Higher Than Karakoram, because that mountain range actually connects the both of us. And Dr. Talat Shabbir happens to be the editor of that batch. So quite a few hats: soldier, scholar, poet, fiction writer, and now editor too. And perhaps many of you don't know, but he's also a good administrator because he's currently also holding the dual charge of director administration, and he has done wonders in reforming the institute. So we are very, very pleased that